The information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Before making a health decision, please consult with a qualified medical professional. Thank you for your attention and enjoy today's episode. What is up, good people of the internet? My name is Tony, and you're tuned into Hemp Nerd, the podcast that clarifies how safe and effective medical cannabis is so you can have a smoother road to recovery. Now, in today's episode, we're actually going to be answering the question, can you take CBD oil with diazepam? Now, if you're unfamiliar with Hemp Nerd and my content, the way we normally like to do things first is initially we want to understand exactly what we're dealing with. So I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about diazepam, what it is, what it's used for, and I guess any side effects that it comes with. And then from there, we're going to actually shift the conversation to, can you actually take it with CBD oil? Is it safe? And what are the risks involved with that? For everyone who's already familiar with Hemp Nerd, you know what time it is. However, if you're new to Hemp Nerd or you've been watching for a while and you actually haven't subscribed yet, hopefully today is the day actually earn your subscription. So with that said, let's jump into it. So where we're going to kick things off is by answering the most obvious question, which is what is diazepam and what is it used for? So diazepam is a synthetic drug belonging to a class of drugs called benzodiazepines. So a benzodiazepine is a type of drug that is commonly known as a tranquilizer. So in effect, diazepam is a tranquilizer. Now, tranquilizers fall into two main categories. The first one is major tranquilizers, which are medically known as antipsychotic agents or neuroleptics, because they're used to treat major states of mental disorder, such as schizophrenia, for example. And then the other class is your minor tranquilizers, which are medically known as anti-anxiety agents or anxiolytics. Anxiolytics, that's how you say it. Now, the reason they're called that is because they're used they're used to treat minor states of mental disorder, such as obviously anxiety, just as an example. Now, diazepam is sold under the name of Valium, as well as a few other different brand names, which I won't get into because there's really no point. Because at the end of the day, the main ingredient there is diazepam. Now, it's used to treat, the main conditions that it's used to treat that I could find through my research is anxiety, alcohol withdrawal, seizures, and insomnia. And it's also used to induce amnesia in difficult procedures. And I don't know why you'd want to induce amnesia, but anyway, it's used for that. And it's also used for muscle relaxation and as an anesthetic before surgery. So the way it works as well is like it acts on your central nervous system to produce a state of sedation that relaxes your muscles and apparently lowers your anxiety levels. So in essence, diazepam it's a tranquilizer. It sedates you. From looking at what it does and how it works, just that brief overview there, diazepam is something that's just going to sedate you. It's not going to take away your anxiety. It's not going to take away your problem. It's not going to actually solve whatever problem that you're actually dealing with. It's just going to sedate you and just make you, I guess, sleepy more or less, which kind of like masks the problem. It doesn't numb the problem. It just kind of like masks it in a way, or it distracts you in a way, or it dulls your senses. That's what I'm actually aiming for there. It actually dulls your senses so you don't actually feel what it is actually dealing with, and it's not actually solving your problem. But that's what that's what's getting prescribed to people, for anxiety, for what list did we have? Anxiety, insomnia, alcohol withdrawal. Like, how is this how's a tranquilizer going to help you withdraw from taking alcohol? How's a tranquilizer going to help you with seizures? It's not going to solve the seizure problem. It's maybe you might, and this is a big might, you might have less seizures, but that doesn't mean that the seizures will stop. And, even with insomnia as well, of course it's going to help with insomnia, because if you can't sleep, if you take something that's going to sedate you, of course you're going to knock out, but that's not going to solve the problem. You're just sedating yourself. You're tranquilizing yourself, so to speak. Anyway, rant over. Let's move on. So what are the side effects of diazepam? So sure as the sky is blue, diazepam and any other synthetic drug out there does come with negative side effects. Like, I'm yet to find a pharmaceutical synthetic drug that does not come with side effects. Like every single one of them does. So the side effect profile of diazepam is, I split it into three groups. So you've got your common side effects, you've got your serious/severe side effects, and you've also got your allergic reaction type side effects. So the common side effect profile for diazepam goes a little something like this. So you get drowsiness, tiredness or fatigue, blurred or double vision, unsteadiness or spinning sensation, constipation, ataxia, which is basically a loss of balance, irritability, nausea, drooling, dry mouth, itching, skin rash, loss of interest in sex. All right, so that's just your common side effects. So that list is most likely going to happen when you do take this tranquilizer. It's like, yeah, you take this tranquilizer. The next group is your serious/severe side effects. So this profile looks a little something like this. So you get memory problems, you get slurred speech or trouble speaking, agitation, hallucinations, confusion, restlessness, muscle weakness, tremors, which is basically just shaking, trouble urinating, yellowing of the eyes or skin, jaundice, which to me, side note, to me that already is screaming out liver failure, but we'll get to that in the later section of this podcast. You also have sore throat, a sore throat that doesn't go away, fever and chills, slow or shallow breathing, or you could fall into a coma because obviously you're sedating yourself, right? And then the allergic reaction side effect profile is basically a rash, itching and swelling in your face, tongue and throat, severe dizziness, and trouble breathing as well. So, even if it's a smaller, I've looked at a few drugs in the past, specifically antidepressants, which have a bigger list of side effects. But even this one, even though it has a smaller list of side effects in comparison, the side effects are still not pretty. They're not positive side effects. These are very negative side effects. And first of all, just looking at the drug, understanding what diazepam is, it's a tranquilizer. It's the thing that they give horses when they want to do stuff to the horse. And even when I came up with something that came up during my research, which I haven't put in the blog post, but I just feel it's worth mentioning here in the podcast, is that another societal problem with diazepam is that it's used as a date rape drug. People use this to put into drinks of victims or people they're targeting for unsolicited sex. All right, so because they know that it will sedate someone, it will tranquilize them, they won't have any control over their body, and they can have their way with them. So it's a big problem. Not just that it's going to give you these negative side effects, but also the way people actually use it. Anyway, let's move on. So what are the withdrawal symptoms of diazepam? So look, the reason I bring this up is because with any synthetic man-made pharmaceutical drug, you are going to have withdrawal symptoms because it's not natural, it's man-made, and it's not made to help you. It's made to give you more problems than the promise that it has. Like it will take this thing away, but it's going to give you these 500 other things that you need to deal with, right? So but again, at the same time, the reason I'm talking about the withdrawal symptoms because I know that there are people out there that actually want to wean off diazepam altogether. They want to stop taking it, but the very big fat risk they have of doing that if they just stop cold turkey is that all these withdrawal symptoms are going to show up. So what do they actually look like? What's going to happen if you're taking it right now, you want to wean off, and you just stop taking it cold turkey? Here's what I found that could possibly happen, right? So you've got your physical symptoms such as headaches, nausea, vomiting, stomach pains, cramps, and even tremors, mostly in your hands. So tremors is just like shaking mainly, right? Then you've also got cardiovascular symptoms such as increased blood pressure and increased heart rate, right? You've also got your neurological symptoms such as confusion and potential seizures. And they say that seizures during withdrawal is actually potentially fatal and needs immediate medical attention. So if you're someone who's taking diazepam, you want to wean yourself off diazepam, you start weaning yourself off diazepam, and you start getting these neurological withdrawal symptoms, one of which is seizures. Those seizures could actually be fatal. It could actually kill you. Like trying to do the right thing with this drug could actually kill you. Like getting off it could actually be very harmful so that's something I found. That's something to be aware of before you actually embark on the journey of weaning yourself off. And then the last withdrawal symptom is your psychological one, which is you get cravings, you get mood swings, your depression increases, you get panic attacks. So if you're treating for anxiety, your panic attacks will just come back. And again, you get rebound anxiety as well. So let's say your anxiety didn't have panic attacks, you just had the sense of anxiety, that will come back. So this supposed drug that they use to treat for anxiety amongst other conditions, if you stop taking it, your anxiety will return, and who knows, it might return even worse than before, because now you took this tranquilizer. We'll just call it what it is, right? We took this tranquilizer to supposedly help solve the problem, but it's actually not really solving the problem. It's making the problem worse. It's just that the people who are selling it to you, under the guise of authority and a white coat, they're not doing that. They're not doing what they're meant to be doing. So I don't even know why this is even in rotation, right? So this all leads us to the question of the day: can you take CBD oil with diazepam? Now, from a safety perspective, I personally believe it is a bad idea to take CBD oil with diazepam, because the risk of something going wrong is very, very, very high. And to be specific, what you're looking at is the drug interactions, because which is, again, I'll get into deeper, but in fact I might as well just get into it now. The reason why I say drug interactions is because CBD oil, not even just CBD oil, any or 80% of pharmaceutical drugs are all broken down in your liver by a group of liver enzymes called cytochrome P450. And it's the same liver enzymes that break down CBD, same liver enzymes that break down THC, same liver enzymes that break down the other cannabinoids present in your CBD oil. Even if your CBD oil does not have THC, it still has to break down CBD and the remaining cannabinoids, because you want to benefit from that entourage effect, right? So that's the main reason. You don't even need to dig too deep into this, right? Just that reason alone is poses a lot of risk if you decide to take CBD oil together with diazepam. Because when someone's asking that question, they're asking, I can see two sets of people asking this question. The first set is they want to wean off diazepam. They want to get rid of diazepam from their life. But they're thinking, oh, what if I take diazepam and then I take CBD oil at the same time? Bad idea. And then the second group of people, the second set of people, is the people who want to just reduce the impact of the side effects. Again, for you to reduce the impact of the side effects, you take diazepam and you take CBD oil at the same time. Bad idea. Okay, regardless of the goal, taking the two at the same time is a bad idea, because they're both broken down in the same section that's in your body, your liver enzyme, cytochrome P450. And what would occur, the risk of things that would happen, I personally believe, in my personal view, right, is that one, you're going to intensify the side effects that you're already experiencing. So we've already been through that list. If you actually take the two together, you're going to see an intensification of the side effects you're already experiencing. Number two, you may also see yourself being exposed to a wider variety of side effects that come with using diazepam. So maybe if you're only experiencing one or two side effects, you might jump to 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 different side effects, depending on how extreme or severe your case is, if you mix the two together. So there's the intensification and there's the multiplication of side effects that you may experience. But that's not all. The third one is liver failure. So remember how initially when I kind of highlighted one of the side effects was yellowing of the eyes and the skin, jaundice, right? Jaundice is one of the symptoms of liver failure, all right? Which is where you're experiencing liver damage because you're overtaxing your liver for one reason or the other. In this case, the reason is because you're overtaxing your liver because you're taking too many pharmaceutical drugs, or you're taking a pharmaceutical drug and you're taking CBD oil together. Just diazepam alone could cause liver failure because it's one of the side effects, right? Jaundice is one of the side effects. Now, if you add CBD oil to that, you're increasing the risk of that actually happening, which again is why it is a bad idea to do so, all right? It's just common sense. So look, I'm bringing all this to light because I want to share a what can I call it, like a strategy, right? In fact, before I even go into the strategy, let me tell you what the other symptoms of liver failure are, because we've spoken about jaundice, right? But what else can you, I guess, look for or be aware of, should I say, if you experience liver failure? Or how do you know you've actually got liver failure? So, of course, we've mentioned jaundice. You've also got pain in your upper right abdomen. I'm sure that's the location of where your liver is. Abdominal swelling as well, nausea, vomiting, a malaise, which is a general sense of feeling unwell. You've got disorientation or confusion, and sleepiness. So those conditions, in some combination or the other, is a sign that you have actually got or experiencing liver failure, because you're overwhelming or overtaxing your liver in this situation because you're taking too many drugs at once. Your liver can only break down so much at any given time. Now, how can someone, right, use CBD oil to wean themselves off diazepam? I mean, my goal with making this content is to kind of light a way or show a way that you could actually use CBD oil to wean yourself diazepam, so you don't have to keep taking it for the rest of your natural life. And look, there is a way to do it. I've seen a few pro cannabis medical professionals actually talk about a way to actually wean yourself off. So I've kind of compiled that information and I created like a little format that I'm going to go through now. I don't know, I'm also working on making this like a downloadable PDF. So if you don't have time to actually go through my content and get to this section where you can find it, if you went to my website, HempNerd.co, you'll be able to find this 5-step strategy, I guess, to help you wean off whatever drug it is without causing any negative side effects. Yeah, I'm still working out how I can actually position this. But look, these are the 5 steps, because there is a way. All right, there is a way. The bad idea is taking them at the same time. But then there is certain things you can put into place, certain strategies or steps or tactics, I'll call them strategies, that you can follow that can help you get to your goal with, with minimal damage, with minimal guesswork as well, and with minimal risk. That's the word I was looking for. Now, the first thing I highly recommend anyone should do, right? If your goal is to wean yourself off, not just to reduce the side effects. I mean, reducing the side effects is fine, but to me, that's an indicator that you still want to take diazepam. Why would you still want to take this silly drug, this tranquilizer? Your goal should be to wean off, right? That would be my goal anyway. If I came across this information, my goal would be to wean off. So the first thing the first thing I recommend you do, right, is buy a journal, right? Have a person, either buy one, or I'm sure maybe you've got one sitting around at home. Have a personal medical journal, because this is one of the most important tools you can have in your arsenal in regards to using medical, or should I say cannabis therapy, medical marijuana or cannabis therapy, to wean yourself off diazepam. Because again, cannabis therapy, medical marijuana is not yet mainstream medical practice. It's not mainstream yet. In fact, the powers that no longer be are trying to keep it away from mainstream. They're trying to keep it illegal for as long as possible, because they know that once medical cannabis becomes mainstream, that will eliminate a lot, if not all, of the drugs on the shelf at the moment, because the plant, the cannabis plant by itself, is a pharmacy within a plant. So if this thing becomes legal, we start to harness the power that's within this plant and we use it wisely, then we won't need any of the drugs that are currently on the shelf at the moment. We won't need them, because they're just irrelevant. Yeah, I've got my own thoughts on those drugs, but that's not the point of this podcast. So have a personal medical journal, right? It's very important that you do so, because you want to track a lot of the data, right? And some of the examples of the data that you want to be tracking before you actually start your new regimen of, weaning yourself off diazepam, what have you, is the first thing that you want to do is you want to know what condition you're treating for. All right, obviously you want to know what goal you want to achieve. Next, you want to know the type of CBD oil that you'll be using, whether it's a full spectrum or a broad spectrum, or maybe even a CBD isolate. But I would lean more to either full or broad spectrum, because you want to take advantage of the entourage effect of the other cannabinoids working in your system. You want to take advantage of that. The next thing I see that you should be tracking is the concentrations of CBD and or THC if it's a full spectrum product that you're using. So how many milligrams per bottle. Another thing that you'll be looking at tracking is the type of cannabis plant that's being used, whether it's a sativa plant or an indica, or it's a hybrid, which is either sativa dominant or indica dominant. You want to have that information in there as well. You want to know what carrier oil that the company is actually using. So you want to know whether it's MCT oil, which is, I guess, coconut oil, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong or could be mistaken. Olive oil or hemp seed oil. Those are the main 3 different oils that they use. I think MCT oil is the most popular one, and then you've got olive oil and hemp seed oil as well. But you want to have that information in your journal. With every new batch that you buy, you want this information. Another one you want is your dosage amounts per administration. So you want to know how many milligrams you'd be getting roughly per drop, and then how many drops per administration. So if you, let's say it's like, I don't know, 2 milligrams per drop, and then that means I'm going to be having two drops per administration. So you know, okay, that's 4 milligrams per administration, you know. So that's, again, the type of information you want to dial in and have in your journal. Next, you want to know the dosage frequency. So are you doing it once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day? Are you doing it in the morning, the evening, at night? Are you doing it just in the morning and at night? You know, and then the last thing you want to know, this is what I have on my list anyway. Obviously, when you start doing this, you're going to figure out what else you should be tracking, right? But this is just like a guide to get you started, to kick you off, or to kickstart your journey to a smoother, kickstart you on the road to smoother recovery, right? But lastly, after you have all that information, the results. You want to track the results as well. When you took 2 milligrams or 4 milligrams in the morning, how did that make you feel? Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? And then even when you're increasing your dosages, if you're going from 4 to 8 milligrams, if you did that in the afternoon, what were your results? Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? You want to track all that information, because right now the medical system isn't doing that for you. And if you want a better quality of life, if you want that condition that you're dealing with to go away, not to just take a tranquilizer to put you to sleep while the condition is still there, and then once the tranquilizer wears off, the condition comes back, and it comes back with friends. You don't want that, all right? You don't want that. So this is a way, all right? This is a way of you taking matters into your own hands, having a personal medical journal as you're using CBD. Be smart about this, all right? This is your health that we're talking about. So the next thing that we need to look at is spacing out the time between administrations. So this is another strategy that's actually highly recommended by pro-cannabis medical professionals, because obviously we want to prevent you from overtaxing your liver. We want to prevent you from getting liver failure. We want to prevent a mechanism called, the scientific community calls this competitive inhibition, which basically means that the worst case scenario of this is that CBD or THC will be blocking diazepam from being metabolized in your liver. And if that happens, more of diazepam, the serum of diazepam is made more abundant in your body. And if that's more abundant in your body, it's not being broken down, it will cause, again, more of those side effects that you're already experiencing to either intensify or multiply. And then obviously we've also got the possibility of you getting liver failure as well, because your liver is already working with CBD, and then your diazepam is trying to get in there to be metabolized, and your liver is like getting overwhelmed and saying, oh my God, what do I do? And then it fails, and then all of a sudden you've got all these conditions. So you don't want that. So the time frames that pro-cannabis medical professionals normally recommend is anywhere between 1 to 3 hours, depending on how fast your metabolism is. But that gives your body enough time to metabolize one thing and then the next thing when it's ready. Right now, if your goal is to wean off diazepam, if that is your goal, then, and this is my personal approach, all right, you figure this out for yourself. You know your body better than I do. But if my goal was to wean off diazepam, in my personal opinion, in my personal view, I would start with CBD oil. I've got my journal, you know, I've bought the oil, and I've written everything, all the information I need to know about the oil. I would start with the oil, a few milligrams, whether it's 1 or 2 drops, and I'll know exactly, I'll work out how many milligrams are in a drop. I'll start with that, give my body 1 to 3 hours. I'll even time myself to see if I feel any effects. So as soon as I take the drops, I'll turn on like my stopwatch or timer or what have you, and then see how long till I start feeling an effect, and then I'll stop it there, and then that'll give me an indicator of how long it takes my body to metabolize CBD oil once I start feeling the effects. All right, and then from there, if I feel it is necessary for me to take diazepam, depending on the condition I'm dealing with, because it may not be anxiety, it may be another reason why I'm taking diazepam, but right now the only logical reason I can see for taking diazepam would be, voluntarily would be for anxiety, right? Because it's not like I'm going under the knife every day, so I need to take diazepam every day. And it's not like I need it for muscle relaxant. In fact, side note, the indica strain of cannabis is way better for muscle relaxation than diazepam. Way better. The only side effects I know of is that you get the munchies and you just sit down and you even get better sleep. It would be good for insomnia as well. Side note, rant over. But back to the drug administrations. 1 to 3 hours. Time yourself, see when the effects kick in, and if it's necessary for me to take diazepam, I would take it. But if I don't see the necessity for taking it, then I won't take it. All right, and then I'll see how long that lasts for, how long those effects. Obviously, I'll write down the effects, how long they last for, what time I took it, what time it kicked in, tracking all that information in my journal, and then just see how the progress continues, how things go. If there is a necessity, if I feel or see that there's a necessity for me to take diazepam, maybe because of, I don't know, the withdrawal symptoms, to kind of negate that, maybe I would, or maybe I would increase the dosage of CBD oil. Who knows? But as long as I'm tracking everything, the point here is to give enough time for each one to metabolize. So 1 to 3 hours for each one to metabolize. If you just want the side effects, if you just want to manage your side effects, the impact of the side effects, obviously you start with diazepam, track or time how long it takes for it to kick in. Once it kicks in, note that time, so at least you understand, or you know roughly how long it takes your body to metabolize diazepam. And then once you have that information, then you start feeling the side effects, then you can take your CBD oil, because by that time your liver would have already metabolized the diazepam. So you're not overtaxing your liver. We're preventing liver failure, or minimizing the risk. Let me put it that way. We're minimizing the risk of you getting liver failure, and versus you just messing things up. All right, so that's the second strategy. Third strategy, microdosing CBD oil. Now, if you don't know what microdosing is the practice of taking the minimum amount of a substance possible to get the desired result that you want from it. In the case of cannabis, let's say you're taking a full spectrum product that has enough THC to get you high, right? There are actually people in the US that admit to microdosing that kind of product, or that kind of cannabis therapeutic product, because they want the benefits of a reduced anxiety, reduced depression, but they don't want to get high. They don't want to be high maybe at work or while driving, or they just don't want to be high at all. They're not recreational users. They're actually using it for medical reasons. So they microdose. So they're taking enough to get the anti-anxiety effects and the antidepressant effects without getting the high from the THC, and that's what microdosing enables you to do. What is so how can you pull that off? So microdosing, generally pro-cannabis doctors recommend starting with anywhere from 2 to 3 milligrams, and that's obviously if your CBD or cannabis therapy oil has enough THC to make you high. Currently, in the way things are in the world at the moment, legally speaking, you cannot get CBD oil with enough THC to make you high, because they regulate it at 0.3% in the US and 0.2% in Europe of THC in a bottle, but CBD go for gold. So that's not enough to get you high, because you actually need anywhere above 7% THC to actually get some kind of high. Most recreational users, when they're smoking a plant or they're smoking a flower, they're smoking anywhere from 15 to 20, and 20% THC is a lot, even 15 to 20% THC or more, right? Look up dabbing. Those guys are crazy. They're taking way too much THC. But that's also the other side. Like that's we have to find that happy middle ground when using this. So anyway, microdosing, 2 to 3 milligrams per serve. That's where you start, and then you increase depending on the results and what you're treating for slightly, which is the next strategy. But before I get into that, what I've also found is that the average range of microdosing is anywhere from 3 to 10 milligrams, which is that's the microdosing range depending on what you're dealing with. But that will enable you to slowly build up to a point whereby you're getting the optimal results with an optimal dosage without causing any negative side effects, which mostly for CBD oil is diarrhea, which I could get into in this episode, but I don't know if there's a point. The fourth strategy I would highly is the slowly increasing over time. So obviously we're tracking everything, we're tracking the information, we're tracking the results, we're microdosing, and now it's about slowly increasing the results increasing the dosage, over time. The reason you want to do that is because you don't want to get too excited. Yes, this cannabis is, some would call a wonder drug, right? Or a wonder treatment. But us as human beings tend to get too excited sometimes because of the promise of what something can do. All right. And instead of being, what word am I looking for? Instead of being cautious, or not being cautious, not even careful, there's another word I'm looking for. Instead of being careful with our approach, we tend to get too excited and we just want to drink the whole bottle, so to speak. I don't think anyone's actually doing that, but you take more than you actually need to. Instead of actually being strategic and careful, and then watching not only how much you're increasing by, and making sure you're learning how much you're taking each day, but also what effect that's actually having. Because everybody's biochemical makeup is different. The way my body metabolizes stuff is very different from the way your body metabolizes stuff. The way my body responds to cannabis therapy will be very different from the way your body responds to cannabis therapy, and your neighbor and my neighbor. So we kind of need to be careful. Just because it worked for, like 5 milligrams works for my neighbor doesn't mean 5 milligrams is going to work for me. Maybe I need 3 milligrams, or maybe I need 7 milligrams. But I need to find that for myself, which is again why the journal comes into play. But then even with slowly increasing, let's say you are at 5 milligrams, right? You're at 5 milligrams, you're getting good results, but you want to increase it to see if you can still maintain the good results, maybe even have a longer lasting effect and have no side effects. You go to 6 milligrams, you're looking good. You go to 7 milligrams, it's looking good. Then you go to 8 milligrams, and then all of a sudden you're experiencing dizziness and you're feeling lethargic as well. And you're like, oh, what is this? How come I'm feeling this way? Slowly increasing, because you went from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, you know that, okay, so from 5 to 6 to 7, I was good. And then as soon as I hit 8 milligrams, I got these negative side effects. And of course, we're tracking everything in our journal. So we can actually taper it back to 7 or 6. You can actually show you've got the intelligence now, and you've got the data as well to say, oh, look, let me just drop it back to 6. In fact, I won't even drop it back to 7. I'll drop it back to 6. I'll stay there for a while, maybe stay there for like 4 days. Then I'll take it to 7. Maybe I'll stay there for a week or 2 weeks, because between 7 and 8 is where the chaos happens. So maybe I'll give my body more time to build up a tolerance if it needs to for 7. And if I do see the need to increase, then I'll increase, but let me at least give it 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. I'll stay at 7. And even if 7 sometimes feels like it's a bit too much, I can drop it back to 6, because between 5 and 7 milligrams is currently my safe zone. And if I go past 7 milligrams to 8, we're in the red zone, if that makes sense. So that's what slowly increasing gets you to do. It shows you where where your safe zone is and where your danger zone is, and when you'll be able to move in between those areas without causing too much negativity or causing too much negative side effects. The final strategy that I would highly recommend is finding a pro-cannabis medical professional, right? I know there are not that many because of the laws and the regulations around cannabis, but they are there, right? And especially now with the internet, you can actually have a consultation like on Zoom or something like that, maybe Skype if they're back in the game. But if you're tracking, right, if you got a journal and you're tracking, and you're very disciplined, you're very strategic, you're very careful with your approach, you've got all this data, and then the last thing is just finding a pro-cannabis doctor to work with, as opposed to finding a doctor first and then starting this process. Like, you can start this process and then find a doctor, and the doctor sees your data. I don't know about you, but if I was a doctor and a patient came to me saying they need my help and they've got data that I can work with, let's say you've been doing it for 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, who knows, but you've got all this data, maybe you've even been using Word, you don't have to write everything down, you've been using a Word document, you've been putting it all in Word, you can just send that off to the doctor. I would be so happy to work with you. Like, if I was a doctor, like seeing a patient being that diligent and being that thorough with their self-treatment and then giving me this data to work with, it would be easier for me to work with you, because now you understand, one, how your body works, how your body responds to cannabis therapy, and then when based on even the results that you're experiencing, because obviously doctors, the way I'm looking at it is pro-cannabis medical doctors are actually trained in this field. They'll be able to dial in what you're doing. They'll be able to see things that you can't see because of their training, because of their medical training in this specific field, because they are pro-cannabis. It is their job to know how this works. But then you're you're making their job easier, because they're not starting from scratch. The problem we have in society at the moment is that when we go and see a doctor, we're going to start from scratch. Oh, I have this problem. What caused it? I don't know. What have you done? Nothing. Look, like the doctor has to start from scratch and try and figure out everything, like ask you a million questions, get you to do things that you don't want to do, and all these, just to figure out, okay, here's the cause, here's what's working, do more of this. When you can actually start that legwork yourself at home, you've got the companies out there selling CBD oil at the moment, I'm even affiliated to a few, and you can actually start this process of documenting what you're doing, what results you're getting, and how it's interacting with your body. And then when you give that information to a doctor that you find, let's say, I don't know, you're in Europe or you're in Australia and you find a doctor in the US, because the US is where almost, I think, all 50 states now CBD oil is legal. You find a doctor who's willing to consult with you. You send them all this data. It'll be so easy. It'll be so easy for the doctor to actually help you out and say, oh, actually, you don't need to fly all the way over here. You've been doing this great work. Just make these minor changes, and let's talk in a week or two. Keep documenting as you're doing, and let's talk in a week or two. It'll be so much easier for the doctor to help you out if you did all this work up front before you actually found one or consulted with one, as opposed to starting from scratch. Just my personal view, okay? This is the way I would do it. If I had a problem and I've done all the research on what treatment is currently available, and I know cannabis therapy is also available, and it works, okay? There's so many studies out there that show that cannabis therapy works, but it's obviously not mainstream because the powers that no longer be want you to believe that you should keep taking the stuff that you're taking that's actually making your problem worse than better. This is the approach I would use. I would highly recommend you do it as well if it's you. But you have to be careful. You have to be strategic. You have to be careful. You don't want to be doing dumb things like taking diazepam and CBD oil at the same time, because you're just going to overtax your liver and cause more problems than solutions. That's my personal view. Look, if you want to know if there are any side effects with taking CBD oil, the only side effect I know of, not even that I know of, even researchers, like I looked at 2 studies, I've mentioned them in my previous episodes as well, when I looked at Cymbalta, which is an antidepressant. The main side effect with taking CBD oil, right, not the CBD compound, but the CBD oil, is diarrhea. That's it. And I don't believe that comes from actually the CBD. I think that's from the oil itself. Maybe it might be MCT oil that causes it, or olive oil that causes it, or hemp seed oil that causes it, but not actual CBD, because there are a bunch of recreational users. I'm connected to a few recreational user communities online, and none of them talk about oh, when I smoke a joint I get diarrhea. No, the only side effect I hear about is they call the munchies. They get the munchies, but that's pretty much it. But from CBD oil, and I personally believe it's actually from the oil itself, it's mainly diarrhea. Some people have mentioned tiredness. Some of the studies brought up tiredness and appetite or weight fluctuations, which goes back to the munchies. But other than that, the most consistent one that keeps showing up is diarrhea. And I personally, in my personal view, that I see is from the actual oil and not the CBD or the cannabinoids themselves. This is from the 2017 study. They said in comparison with other drugs used for treatment of these medical conditions, CBD has a better side effect profile. This could improve patients' compliance and adherence to treatment. Okay, so, and they concluded the review. So this was a 2017 review, which was updating a 2011 study looking at the safety and side effects of CBD or cannabidiol, sorry. And they concluded by stating that the safety profile has already been established in a multitude of ways for it being favorable for patients. All right. The only areas of CBD research that should be extended or looked at is to close the knowledge gaps, and as well as so we can have a well-tested compound for mainstream use. That is basically it. Like we all know, not just CBD, but the cannabis therapy is the way to go. We know cannabis therapy is the way forward. We just as a society, as a collective, we literally need to start closing those knowledge gaps. And you as a patient can actually help by journaling your journey, collecting data on yourself, on how this compound works in your body, how much of it you need for your condition, what results you're getting, and finding a doctor you can consult with or partner with, and then sharing your data with them so they can dial in your treatment, and then they can use they could, with your permission of course, but they can use your data to help other patients with similar conditions. That's the way I see we should move forward on this. Otherwise, those are my thoughts. That's my closing piece. The only other thing I have to say is that, look, if you're in the market, you've listened to all this, it all makes sense, you're looking at getting your hands on some CBD oil, you can visit hempnerd.co/CBD shops. On there, I have four online companies that actually sell, should I say 4 online retailers that sell CBD oil. They provide international shipping if you're outside the US. They provide discreet packaging so it doesn't get seized by customs, and they provide third-party lab testing on all their CBD oil, and they provide certificate of analysis reports on their website so you can actually see what is in the CBD oil and the concentrations of CBD and THC in the batch that they're selling you at the moment. And yeah, if you purchase via our links, obviously you're helping keep Hemp Nerd alive, and I'll be very grateful for your support so I can keep bringing out information like this to help you get a smoother road to recovery. Otherwise, that is it for today's episode. Thank you for your time and your attention. Hopefully, if you're new or you've been watching me for a time, I have actually earned your subscription today. For those of you who've already subscribed, thank you very much. I really appreciate you, and I will catch you in the next episode of the Hemp Nerd podcast. Peace.